Hello there and welcome to Flosstube number 1 by the Stitching Owl. You might wonder why I came up with that name. It's actually quite simple. I do most of my stitching in the middle of the night when only the owls are awake. So I get about 2 to 5 hours of stitching done when most of the world is asleep. Someday when my insomnia is cured, I'll probably have a lot less stitching accomplished, but for now, I'm doing quite well. July was a very productive month. Where did all of this begin for me? Well, I come from a very creative family. My grandmother was a quilter, and she lived with us, my mom's mom. Now, I sleep under one of her quilts every single night. Every stitch was done by hand. There was no machinery with this. My mother lovingly cut out every piece for her to sew, and then she and a few of her friends would get together after my father had put up the quilting frames in our basement, and they would quilt away. Sometimes they could even get a very large quilt done in a month. It's amazing what those ladies inspired. My mother thought, oh, that's so much work, I'm never going to do that. But then she discovered you could quilt on a sewing machine, and off she went. So I had homemade clothes while I was little, and she has been working on usually wall quilts during my teenhood and adulthood. Now, this has caused my sister to become a wonderful seamstress and quilter herself. I got lucky that my brother married somebody who's a quilter and seamstress. So this is really in the family. Now, when we go back to when I was young, which was probably in the Mesozoic age, I am so old that when I was little, we had no television. We were expected to read. We were expected to practice our piano. All three of us children became musicians. Now, my brother did switch to the cello, but he is still an accomplished pianist as well. My sister and I have been teaching in our homes for so long that when we started, insurance companies weren't sure how to deal with the in-home worker. They didn't have that experience before, and yet we needed insurance because we had people coming in all the time. It's very different now when so many people are working from home, isn't it? The insurance industry certainly knows how to charge us for working at home. During that period, my grandmother and mother, of course, thought it would be highly appropriate if my sister and I learned how to embroider. Now, I'll be the first to say that when you're 6 years old, the French knots usually don't go very well at all. But I did learn to cross stitch. And the way we learned how to do that was actually on small gingham. The gingham was the tiny, tiny gingham, and I was given daffodils. And what you did was you made your X in all of the white boxes, and then the blue boxes were left as the gingham. And so I made 4 or 5 daffodils across this piece of gingham. And then, of course, like any logical person of that period, my mom made it into an apron because we always had to wear an apron when we were working in the kitchen with her. Now, I was afraid to use that apron. I'm sure I can find it here someday to show you what that apron was, because we kept it and I refused to get any food on it. Now, we're going to skip forward by a while and get to my teenhood when cross-stitching started to have counted cross-stitch patterns in books by Leisure Arts, and I was fascinated. I was somebody who was a bit of a type A personality and needed very much to figure out how to relax. And I found that putting those X's in was certainly a way to do it. So I found a number of animal cross-stitch books and seasonal, summer, fall, winter, spring, that I could make, and I would stitch away. I was very happy doing the stitching, albeit I thought, wow, I wish I had more than white or ecru Aida to work on. I didn't ever think that there would be as many varieties of materials to work on as we have now, nor did I imagine that I would be working on anything other than 14 count, because it just didn't dawn on me that something else was ever going to become available. So I kept stitching through my teenhood and in my 20s. We get to my 30s, and surprise of all surprises, I was able to have children. So I had 3 children in quick succession, 3 under the age of 4 at one time. And at that point, I was so busy that I set aside all of my sewing and all of my cross stitch, and actually thought I would just save the space in the little bedroom. And like so many others, I gave away all of my cross stitch stuff. I wish I still had those patterns, because many of them could be reconfigured with newer colors to be wonderful. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. When we come forward, I got into quilting. My mother bought me a sewing machine, thinking, well, maybe Karen will do a little bit. Not realizing that within 6 months of getting that sewing machine, I would be addicted to being busy. And at that point, I started quilting in the middle of the night because I was already having a challenge sleeping at night. It took a number of more years for me to return to cross stitch. My husband is a runner, and one of the things that he liked to do in order to train, because he was going to do the virtual Boston while we were under our COVID lockdown, he wanted to practice long distances. So what I would do is I would get the plan of his route, and then I would drive myself to every about 8K. I would be there waiting for him with the pretzels, the gummies, and the beverages, so he didn't have to carry it with him. Now, some of the time more people would join him, which I really did love. He even led a running clinic for a while, and I sat in many beautiful parks waiting for people to run up to me. Well, I decided that I should be doing something during this time. My father was in a full care facility, and I thought, I used to like cross stitching. Maybe I will cross stitch him a Christmas stocking. The way they move people around in retirement homes where full care is necessary, we had to make sure that we didn't have anything on the wall that if it fell would break. So I didn't want to put anything there that had a frame. I wanted to do something that could just be cloth, and so I went with a stocking. I got it done in about 2 months of runs for my husband. My husband did finish the virtual New York marathon, and my father was alive for 1 year to have that cross-stitch stocking on the wall. My fire had ignited though, and I was back to stitching. I am so fortunate because I have an LNS that is just expanded, as a matter of fact, and has just finished the expansion about 3 weeks ago. It has both quilting and cross-stitching. It's also got beading and tatting and punch needle. It's got almost anything that you would want to stitch. It is indeed called Stitch It Central, and I'm here in London, Ontario, Canada. So I have been able to see all the different kinds of threads because they've got a wonderful collection. They will send them out in the mail should you ever need anything. They have a wide variety of stitching fabrics. I don't have to guess what I'm looking at online. I get to see it in real life. And the owner is so nice to work with and encouraging. So that is my story bringing me through to cross stitch. Now, earlier this year, I was watching Made by Michelle McGraw, and she was talking about making it the year of the ornament. She wanted to be able to complete one per week, 52 ornaments in the same week. Whoops, not in the same week, in the same year. And I thought, I wonder if I can do that too. So here I am with lots of ornaments, and I can honestly say that at the end of July, I had finished 52 ornaments this year, and I'm going to continue on and see if I can make it an even higher number. The other thing that I like to do is to jump onto the Colorado Cross Stitchers Summer Stitch Camp. So in July, I completed this particular cross stitch. The theme was something that grows, and I thought, well, kittens grow, trees grow, and birds grow. So I had it covered from all directions. I was also fortunate that in the past 6 months, I have been the receiver of 2 boxes of framed pictures of people that we don't know. So I am now taking pictures out of the frames and saying, what can I put in this? Sometimes what I'm doing is I'm choosing how big, or maybe I should say how small, the count is on this so that I can fit it into the frame. So this particular picture is called, now it's written in French, translated it's called The Tomcat, and it is by, okay, I'm Canadian, but my French is not great. Création, Martine Rijoudi, something like that. I wanted to show you what that name is. I got the pattern at Pastime Pieces just outside of Leamington, Ontario. They have a collection of different patterns by this particular producer. This will be the next one that I make from that designer. I think it's adorable, and I did mine on 32 count gray even weave Lagana, and the Lagana had the dots already on, so I didn't actually have to stitch those dots that were part of the original pattern. So that was my FO for the Colorado Cross Stitchers for July. Now, August is Do Something New, and today is August 1. I'm still trying to think that one out. I have a couple of patterns that have some hardanger in it. I just don't know whether I'm going to be brave enough to actually do it and cut the material before the end of the month. So I'm going to wait till the next Flosstube to tell you what I've decided, because I don't know yet. But let's look at the rest of July. One other FO I have is my first Heart and Hand Tiny Town. This is Blooming Tiny Town. I found this one to be absolutely so much fun to stitch. And with my ability to stitch at night, I could finish one section each day. So that meant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It took me 7 nights of stitching to finish this. 2 days ago, I watched the tutorial by Vonna Pfeiffer on how to make a drum. My goal for this month of August with this one is to actually follow her instructions. I purchased the fiberfill. I'm going to weight it with a few poly pellets. I have a nut allergy, so I don't use walnut shells, but I can use poly pellets. So this I'm hoping to have as an FFO very soon, a fully finished object. Now, was there anything else that was just an FO and not fully finished? 2 ornaments by Nikki Pattern on Etsy. This is a Christmas fox, and it has been stitched on 25 count Lugana pewter. What I wanted to do, I stitched these 2 at the same time. This is the Christmas moose. This is on 22 count Hardanger. So you can see that the 22 count is a little bit bigger than the 25 count. And I've decided that going forward, I actually prefer this, the 25 count. Now I have to do a poke and stab method instead of a sewing method when I stitch on 25 count. So I'm a little bit slower with these than I am with something 22 or bigger where I can use some of my sewing method. But these ornaments, there's still a couple more in the Nikki pattern for me to do, and I'm looking forward to doing that, and I will have those FFO'd very, very soon. Now, what else did I do for ornaments? Because in July, I actually completed 14 ornaments. Wow. That's actually, it tied my month of April for the best output month. Now, I only count those 14 are fully finished ornaments. I'm not counting those 2 by Nikki Pattern that weren't fully finished. So one of the things that I have truly enjoyed doing is getting the patterns from Hands-On Designs Polar Plunge. Now I have done 3 of the patterns so far. Well, hello there. I think this guy's called Wally the Walrus. And is this not the cutest polar bear on earth? Now you'll probably notice that I have just left the snowflake as a snowflake at the top instead of making it into a Christmas ornament the way it is charted on the pattern. You're going to find I have no problem with changing colors, changing 1 or 2 things on the pattern. Now these particular this is done on 20 count cornflower Aida. It is a very soft Aida. I can't remember the producer of the cornflower. I actually ordered it from 123 Stitch just to see what it was going to be like and was delighted with it. I like a softer Aida, not the crunchy kind. And so what I do is I have stuffing, quilt bat actually. I always have extra pieces of quilt bat left over from the sides when I cut off the edges to put on the binding. So I've put 2 layers of my quilt bat in here, no layers of quilt bat on the back when you have sticky board, and then I blanket stitch them together and put on a beaded hanger so that they will easily go on a tree or hang on anything that you might want to put around the house. So there's those 3, and I'm hoping to get to the other 3 that they have produced in August. I do have 2 of the patterns. I do need to go online to get that narwhal. Now, the reason the narwhal is particularly important for me to complete, before children, BC for me, my husband and I had a 20-foot sailboat. And when we got it, we were not the first owners, and it had a point out the front of its bow. It came to us being called narwhal because of that point. And so I do want to complete the narwhal ornament and have it ready for my husband for Christmas. So those were 3 that I did. Now, one of the things that you're going to find out is that I particularly enjoy waxing moon design littles. So being that we were in Jolly July, or Christmas in July, I purchased and completed all 6 Christmas littles. Here is the Christmas squirrel. These are done on 32 count Lugana. It's Stormy Night Lugana. It's just that when you stitch it and it's this small, you can't see the modeling that is so beautiful on it. So Christmas squirrel, and the back is just a handy dandy leftover Christmas fabric from something my mother did. I always have extras. Christmas penguin. This is Mrs. Claus. I think she's supposed to be, this is a mixing bowl and a spoon with some icing to lick off and cookies. Now, even on these, you'll find that I may not do all of these snowflakes, or I might replace some of them with beads. I sort of have fun with them, and I'm creative. I think I'm just happy making. Here is Rudolph with his friend the cardinal. I think this is adorable, and I plan to make this again, maybe more than one more time, so that I can use it to give away at Christmas. Then, of course, if I did Mrs. Claus, I'd better do Mr. Claus as well. All of these have the same backing. And then the last one was an elf. Now, my color conversion on here for what I had in the house was such that it sort of looks like the elf has a patchwork outfit rather than logical shading. But being that I'm a quilter, I decided I was just going to leave it as is and say he was a patchwork elf. So those are my Christmas ornaments. Now, I also ordered in the winter littles, and I have 2 of those done. This is the owl. So he can go on a Christmas tree, but then stay out as an ornament. And my back is left over from another project. And likewise, this is the bear that is ready to shovel your snow. One of the things that I find particularly fun about these sets of ornaments is that you can make this outline, and it's not that hard to actually meet up. I've only messed up twice. Once because I miscounted, which, hey, counting's hard sometimes, and once because I went over 3 instead of over 2. But other than that, the outside is really easy to do. So I can get 4 or 5 of these set up on one long strip of material, and then I can have a series of nights in a row where I can actually complete one of these in a night. So they are a quick stitch. They truly are. And something else that I did in July, birds don't worry, they just sing. This is something that I need to keep reminding myself. I love the birds that come to visit my bird feeder. They're always singing. The squirrels sometimes complain when the bird feeders are empty, but the birds are always singing. And I think this was my very first effort at 1/1 on 25 count. So I wanted something without a lot of shading so that I could just pick what I had for colors for the birds and see whether it was possible for me to do this. And then the backing, this is just a fat quarter that I bought at Walmart. Their fat quarters are like $2.50 Canadian. So I figured I could get quite a few ornament backings out of $2.50. So one of the things that I do, my mother, I've taken her an ornament stand, and when I go and visit each week, I exchange the ornament that is on her stand. And in that way, she knows that I'm thinking of her and I'm adding something a little bit different to her surroundings, but she doesn't have more to keep because she's at that stage where she's trying to have us take stuff out of the house, not give her more stuff. Also completed as an FFO, but stitched previous to July, was this Christmas ornament that was out of the 2022 Just Cross Stitch Christmas Ornaments book. I do like a good gnome, but I must admit that I prefer my gnomes to be about this size. I'm not into having them like really, really big. I think he's adorable, and I can't wait to see what the Ornaments book is for 2023. So those are the things that I can remember that I did in July. Now, we're going to continue with a bit of an ornament parade because I do want to show off what I have accomplished in 2023 towards my 52 ornaments in this year. There is a hashtag for this goal 52 ornaments, I believe, on Instagram. I will confirm that and try to put that in to the description below. This is a learning process for this dinosaur, so I am going to have my youngest child help me to figure out how to add in all of the comments that need to happen. So if we continue with a few ornaments, this was an Easter ornament that I created. And this is a Twin Peaks primitive design. This is also on 32 count Lagana Stormy Night. When I was looking through some past magazines of my sister-in-law, because yes, she cross stitches too, I discovered she had a Prairie Schooler Santa Claus in one of her older editions. So I thought, I need to get doing some Prairie Schooler, and this is my first fully finished Prairie Schooler. I see that there will definitely be more in my future. Also out of the 2022 Christmas Ornaments magazine, we have Baking Spirits Bright. I couldn't read backwards. Of course, now I'm going to have to think out, is this appearing correct or backwards to you? We'll see how that goes. And now you're going to see a whole bunch of waxing moon, and you're not going to see them all, because one of the things that I like to do is to mail an ornament out to somebody who's not expecting a tiny gift. Just to pop it into a card, pop it in the mail, and send it out. And I find that I always get a really nice response email from them. So the Valentine Littles by Waxing Moon, I have made 12 of these, and I only have 3 here because I gave the rest away. But I did make them all this year. Here is the owls. How appropriate that the stitching owl stitches owls. This is the skunk. And this is one of my particular favorites, the swans. I've done this one for a number of people. I feel that this is a really nice anniversary gift to do. And on the back, I've got, really, it's the same Walmart material as you saw before, just in a different color. They've got this, it's like this crosshatch look in about 6 different colors. So it's going to be a while before I run out of that. And if you're wondering about how I do my blanket stitch, that is pearl cotton. It's a number 5 weight. Summer smalls, of course, got done. This is the frog. Another skunk. Now, I have a 10-pound dog that we hope will never get sprayed, but just in case, we have the skunk be gone stuff. Here is the bear eating the honey. I think this whale with the crab on its spouted water is absolutely adorable. And then there, of course, is a picnic pig. If you can see, these are picnic ants at the bottom. Obviously, somebody at Waxing Moon has a sense of humor. And thinking ahead, I actually have some fall littles done. Here is a Thanksgiving turkey. Now in Canada, our Thanksgiving is at the second weekend of October. So it's a little bit different than it is in the United States. Here is the raccoon with the pumpkin. Yes, you guessed it, Karen did another owl. And on the back of these, I've got this material. I'm not sure where I got that material. Sometimes when I'm in quilting stores and they have grab bags of just little pieces, like for $5 you get a grab bag of ends, I will just take a couple of those because I'm sure that I can get enough out of these. There's enough material there for the backs of littles. And then of course, every good fall theme has a squirrel somewhere with acorns and leaves in it. I have another one of those done, but right now it's hanging at my mother's, so it will be saved for next time. Now there were spring littles as well. Spring, yes. So here we have the garden bunny with a couple of butterflies and doing well with his carrots. We have our bunny with flowers. I think she's absolutely adorable. And you can see that this time I've been adding beads to this particular outline just to, I thought it made it more springy. And I've got a lovely collection of beads that I'm like, I might as well use them. Doesn't matter if they're on the pattern. This is the cutest bluebird in his Easter bonnet. You can see the laurel of flowers around his head. And of course, April showers. where we've got our raindrops, little chicks that have come out of their eggs, and some beautiful tulips. So that is the ornaments that I completed this year. So you're probably wondering whether there's even more. This is where, oh, actually, I'm going to correct that. This is what I did for my mother to celebrate Canada Day. It is a portion of a Shannon Christine design. It's done on 32 count Stormy Night Lugana. So you can see that that's one of my favorite backgrounds. I purchased a full yard of it. Actually, we use meter here, and that's even a little bit bigger than a yard. I had so much fun doing the fireworks that really look like they are quilt blocks. I'm going to take this part out and do it in Christmas colors. I'm also thinking about doing it in blue and silver and making ornaments that are a big circle and a little circle, because I think that would be a beautiful addition to any Christmas gift as well. Yes, I have done a Mill Hill kit. I have a few more up there to get going at. These are a lot of fun, excuse me. And they come with the beads. They actually come with more beads than you need, so that gives me more to work on putting into my other stuff. What else do we have here? On Etsy, no, on Pinterest, I noticed that there were some really cool Halloween designs. And I thought, I can do those. And so I did. The thing is that I then discovered when I did start going onto Etsy, because I wasn't using Etsy for the longest time. I have now learned how to run a PayPal account, and I'm doing great with my Etsy. What I found out was that the patterns that I had made were being sold. They are Doreen Jones, and they should not be up for free on Etsy. So it's unfortunate that they were there. So I turned around and I purchased the patterns so that I felt better about actually having these out. So there, of course, is another owl from the Stitching Owl. Here is a cat. And here is a haunted house. This was my first effort at trying to make cording, and I had leftover yarn. My daughter likes to crochet, and she wasn't sure what to do with the rest. The little bits of yarn that were left over, that the weight didn't match others or the colors didn't go together. And I said, please don't throw them out. I can make little pom-poms. I can experiment with making cording. Now, I think I can do a lot better than this cording, but I felt happy that I was able to use the ends of that purple and orange, and so I'm going to stay happy with that. This is another Twin Peaks Primitive Easter. Yes, just assume that these are on the 32 count Stormy Night. Now this was, I think this is a 20 count Lugana that is just pure white. And the pattern was in a magazine that I gave back to my sister-in-law. So I did this part, and then I beaded around here, and then to keep it on point, I put the hanger at the top point and a little bell at the bottom. It's not your traditional Christmas colors, but I do think that it's fine on a Christmas tree, and we can keep it up through any time of the year. Also from the Christmas 2022 Christmas Ornaments magazine, these little birds. The back of that was leftover Christmas fabric. This is from a book that has been long out of print that I will unearth and show you the next time. Literally, I just had this tiny, narrow bit of, this looks like 8 of 20, left over, and I was like, what can I do with this? And I thought, oh, let's find a skinny that we can pop on there. Out of one of my sister-in-law's Christmas magazines, I found the center of a larger work could just be picked out. It looks a little bit like something you could quilt. I've got beads in here. And then, yes, you guessed it, I'm back to that particular material on the back. This is a Doreen Jones ornament that I purchased off of Etsy. Now she has a fabulous way of folding this up to get a different shape, but I rather wanted it to be just an on point, so I left it like this. I will figure out that folding another time. Also out of a very old, like 2001 maybe magazine. The magazines that I'm taking these out of actually don't exist anymore or have joined together to make the cross-stitching magazines that we have now. Oh, this was a July. I missed this one. This is a snow globe ornament, and drat, I cannot remember. I cannot remember who designed this. They have lovely things out. I'll have to put it in the notes below. Now, Hands On Design did a pattern called First Frost that I was fortunate enough to win from Laura on Stitching by the Shore. Now, instead of making one picture, I made a series of ornaments. So this was my first attempt at stitching on 40 count linen, and it's just your basic antique white. I got one of those tiny, like 8x10 swatches from 123 Stitch to see whether or not I could actually sew on it, because I wasn't sure. My eyes are not as young as they once were. Having said that, our dollar store has 3 times cheaters for $1.50, and it makes it possible. So that is one of them that I did. This is a tiny one that I did. And then I decided to bling one of them up, and I put a series of beads around here following some instructions from Ornamentations. That's a wonderful floss tube that I encourage people to watch along with Stitching by the Shore, because they give so much information. This young lady, her name is Katie Strachan, and she is beyond amazing with a needle and thread. Out of one of the old magazines, I made this triangle. Well, I'm not so sure it's a perfect triangle. He looks a little lopsided, doesn't he? But you know what? When I put him on the tree in this next year, I doubt anybody walks by and goes, "Who did that lopsided triangle?" It's a pyramid ornament that it's in the folding. The ends where you sew it up, it was really neat that this actually came together so easily. I just have to learn to stuff it better. And then when I was helping my mom do some cleaning, I found an ornament that I did for her before children, BC. It was a kit. I'm not sure where I got this kit, but it was one of those that you did it in the center and you actually fold it together and then whip stitch. I remember doing this for her and being so proud that I could do that. Now, I have no idea. You know what? I think I was stitching on some pretty small, that looks like a 25 count. So maybe I shouldn't have been quite as worried about doing that. But it's mostly beading, not really cross stitch. And I think that's where my show and tell for my ornaments for 2023 and a few left over from 2022 is going to end for today. So hopefully this is the first of many floss tubes. I don't have any grand and glorious hopes about becoming somebody who has thousands of followers. This is more a diary of what I am doing and an effort to be part of an absolutely astonishingly wonderful community. I'm seeing more Canadians hop into Flosstube, and I thought, you know what, I think I can do it too. I plan on doing more ornaments this month. I want to do the Something New project for the Colorado Cross Stitchers Summer Camp 2023 assignment. I have some frames. Of course, I should probably show you the correct side. There's this one. And here's another frame that I would like to find something, and literally I'll just find something that fits and goes into them, and then I will stitch that. Now, you heard me say earlier that I also quilt, so I thought just before I leave you for today, I would show you a couple of my quilts, so I'll excuse myself. This is a Violet Craft paper piecing baby quilt that was so much fun. Paper piecing is either something that you really love to do or you're not very much of a fan. I happen to love doing it for its precision. This wall hanging was something that I made just to have some fun with angles. There was no pattern, and to practice my free motion quilting. All of this was done on a sewing machine that has a slightly larger neck so that you can actually work on full-size quilts, but it is just a regular sit-down machine. And the last one I'll show you today is this one. I had a friend who gave me a pack of 5-inch squares. She had bought them and then couldn't figure out what to do with them. She was cleaning and just decided she was going to give it away. Under normal circumstances, I would have said, wow, that's bright, and not really a Karen combo of colors. But I thought, you know, I should challenge myself to make something that is really bright. Now on the back, I used leftovers so that if it was a little boy, they could be using the barnyard side, and if this was a play mat for a little girl, they could use the pretty bright colors. So there you go. I've managed through my first floss tube without a dog barking, only a couple of buzzes from my cell phone. I have enjoyed making this for you and look forward to reading comments below. I find that when I am making, I am more comfortable with who I am and can center myself even on a day that has had stresses. So as we say goodbye for today, please go and make yourself happy. Make something.